This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. This is the only day of the year you can play Earth, Wind, and Fire September on repeat with no questions asked. Them's the rules. Here's what we got for y'all. Double voting is rare and illegal, but those who are accused of doing it aren't always prosecuted. We've got more on that. Plus, coronavirus is impacting pregnant women among minority communities particularly hard. We'll tell you how the CDC is working to address coronavirus-related hospitalizations within that group. But first, here's what you need to know right now.
It says the president is supposed to fill the seat, right? And that's what we're going to do. We're going to fill the seat.
The president says he plans to announce his pick for the Supreme Court vacancy later this week, and that it will be a woman. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away at the age of 87 on Friday to pancreatic cancer. Ginsburg will lie in repose at the Supreme Court Wednesday and Thursday so the public can pay their respects. Growing memorials can already be seen outside the court. Then on Friday, Ginsburg will lie in state at the Capitol's Statuary Hall in a ceremony open only to invited guests. Ginsburg will be buried at Arlington National Cemetery in a private service next week. Her seat now takes center stage in an already deeply divided election year. Mitch McConnell promised to give Trump's nominee a vote on the Senate floor as the White House signals they want to move quickly to confirm a nominee. But a move to confirm a new justice so close to the election breaks the precedent set by McConnell and Senate Republicans in 2016 when they held up President Obama's Supreme Court pick for 9 months to, as they said, give voters a voice in the decision.
Been more than 80 years since a Supreme Court vacancy arose and was filled in a presidential election year. Will we allow the people to continue deciding who will nominate the next justice? Or will we empower a lame duck president to make that decision on his way out the door instead?
If an opening comes in the last year of President Trump's term and the primary process is started, we'll wait to the next election.
Democrats have been quick to point out that contradiction. If a Trump nominee were approved, conservatives would have a more dominant 6-3 majority in the nation's top court.
She said, "My most fervent wish is that I will not be replaced by until a new president is installed."
More than half of all states across the U.S. are seeing a surge in coronavirus cases as the nation's death toll approaches 200,000. Today, California became the 4th state to top 15,000 deaths, joining New York, New Jersey, and Texas. Back in May, the World Health Organization advised governments that positivity rates should hold steady at 5% or lower for at least 2 weeks before businesses reopen. According to Johns Hopkins University, a total of 27 states have rates above that level right now. A little bit of whiplash today about what's driving the spread of COVID-19. An update on the Center for Disease Control's website got a lot of attention over the weekend. It said the virus can travel more than 6 feet and spread through tiny droplets called aerosols that linger in the air much longer. But now the CDC removed that entire section from its website, calling it a mistake. Here's what we do know. Large respiratory droplets at close range are mainly responsible for spreading the virus. Those can come from things like a cough or a sneeze. The World Health Organization says it is monitoring emerging evidence of possible airborne transmission, but there has been no official guidance on that. So to be clear, no one has ruled out the virus spreading via aerosol droplets. Either way, experts suggest keeping that mask on whenever you're around other people. On September 8th, President Trump had a message about voting for his supporters in North Carolina.
Make sure you send the ballot in and then go to your polling place and make sure it counts.
That sounds a lot like double voting, which in the past has been rare and illegal. But defying that law doesn't always come with a penalty. Newsy investigative reporter Patrick Terpstra looks into why prosecutors in Washington state declined to charge dozens of voters suspected of voting twice in 2016.
I want people to know that we take this seriously.
Washington Secretary of State Kim Wyman discovered 74 people who appeared to have voted twice in the 2016 election. That was out of more than 3 million ballots cast in a state that votes by mail. Wyman gave the evidence to county prosecutors, who she says declined to file any charges.
I was disappointed that we didn't have any of our county prosecutors actually prosecute those crimes. They are felonies in our state.
A study by researchers from Harvard and Stanford found double voting in America is infrequent, happening at most in 1 out of every 4,000 ballots cast. but with record-keeping errors at election offices responsible for many of those cases. Rare as someone actually voting twice might be, we found it's even more unusual to see charges filed when it does happen. One reason is because people who vote twice don't always mean to. Most of the 74 cases of possible voter fraud in Washington state occurred in populous King County, home of Seattle. The prosecutor's office received and investigated 18 reports of double voting, finding enough to believe 10 people did in fact vote twice, but never charging anyone with a crime.
Did you know we're the nation's largest vote-by-mail jurisdiction?
King County's prosecutor declined to speak on camera, but a spokesman says all 10 double voting cases were accidental. People who had moved and voted again in their new town, or who cast a ballot in another state where they had a second home. Instead of issuing indictments, King County sent warning letters to the suspected illegal voters telling us, "We have seen the same result from our letters as we did from the previous misdemeanor filings. They stopped their behavior. If they did not, we could move forward with filing a criminal case against them, and we're very clear about that in our letters to them." Rutgers social science professor Lorraine Maniti has found prosecutors often pass on filing charges because, as in King County, they don't want to go after people who didn't intend to vote twice.
But they might vote early, actually forget, and show up at the polls.
Or someone votes for a recently deceased spouse.
I mean, people who've been married 50 years are like finishing each other's sentences. They're sort of like, his vote is my vote. I don't know. It's like a dumb thing to do. Yeah. But was there really an intent to sort of undermine the outcome of the election?
Washington state law says double voting is illegal only when someone intentionally votes twice or acts recklessly or negligently. We found 13 other states also require intent to convict.
The crime is an intent crime. The crime is that you knowingly did it. So to convict somebody, you have to get to state of mind.
So law enforcement focuses on major cases of voter fraud, like this Ohio poll worker who repeatedly voted in multiple elections.
And she also voted for her sister, who has been in a coma since 2003.
Hans von Spakovsky at the Conservative Heritage Foundation says not charging those who vote twice signals illegal voting just isn't a big deal.
We want to protect the right of everyone to vote, and that includes not only making sure that everybody who's eligible is able to vote, but that their vote isn't diluted or negated by someone voting illegally.
Wyman is hopeful prosecutors will eventually charge some of the 74 people she identified across Washington state as voting twice.
There's a part of me that understands kind of what I just said, and then there's a part of me that also understands that, it would be more of a deterrent if we actually prosecuted someone who voted more than once.
Patrick Terpstra, Newsy, Washington.
We got something to celebrate. So the virtual Emmys were pretty wild, but did you know we got an Emmy nomination too? Not we as in the loop. People are still trying to figure out what we're doing here. Newsy was recognized for our Newsy Bellingcat series in the Outstanding New Approaches Current News category for the News and Documentary Emmy Awards. Fewer celebs, more open records requests, probably. So now that we've gotten through the shameless plug, here's what's trending.
And the Emmy goes to Zendaya, Euphoria.
Zendaya made Emmys history last night by becoming the youngest person to win lead actress in a drama for her role as Rue on HBO's Euphoria. Zendaya beat out other nominees, including Jennifer Aniston, Olivia Colman, Sandra Oh, Laura Linney, and Jodie Comer, who set the record last year. The series has already been renewed for a second season. Low-key, I'd love to see more virtual award shows so we can get that extra half second of suspense before folks realize they've won. Coach Prime is trending because Deion Sanders, known as Primetime, landed his first head coaching job at Jackson State University, an HBCU in Jackson, Mississippi. The school introduced him with a marching band Monday, which is how I'm going to request to start the show from now on. The NFL Hall of Famer is currently the offensive coordinator at Trinity Christian School in Cedar Hill, Texas. Sanders says he'll finish up the season there and then get started with Jackson State. No word yet on how his signature high step will play into his coaching strategy. Relax, Maryland. This one's video game related. Microsoft announced today that they are purchasing ZeniMax Media, the parent company of Bethesda Softworks, for $7.5 billion with a B in cash. Bethesda is behind the popular post-apocalyptic game Fallout and the fantasy series Elder Scrolls. This is a big deal for Microsoft's Xbox team. The purchase adds 8 new game development studios, putting them at 23, and several popular titles. But this does kind of make Bethesda's work with Sony a little awkward, seeing that Bethesda has some upcoming drops on the PS5, just another thing game-obsessed significant others have been begging for. According to Bloomberg, those games will be exclusively on PS5 for a period of time before eventually going to Xbox. According to the CDC, Black women are 2 to 3 more times likely to die from a pregnancy-related complication than a white woman, and that's outside of a pandemic. COVID-19 has had a disproportionate impact on communities of color, and for minority women who are pregnant, the situation becomes even more complicated. Newsy's Amber Strong explains how the CDC is working to address coronavirus-related hospitalizations of pregnant minority women.
There's a health disparity in the U.S., and researchers from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention say COVID-19 may be making it worse for pregnant women. Bree Markey Johnson says she knew something wasn't right when she arrived at the hospital for delivery.
I kept having a fever, like a low-grade fever, and they were like, this kind of comes with pregnancy and labor sometimes, so it could just be it. And I'm like, but do I need to be tested?
After giving birth, she was discharged despite chills and a fever she says wouldn't go away.
When I would suck in, I was having difficulty breathing.
4 days later, she was back in the hospital. The diagnosis, COVID-19. New data from the CDC shows pregnant women who are Hispanic or Black might have disproportionately higher rates of COVID-19 associated hospitalization. The number of Black and Hispanic pregnant women hospitalized outpaces the same groups of women who aren't pregnant. The CDC says identifying COVID-19 during birth hospitalizations is important to guide preventive measures. Markey Johnson says that didn't happen.
What if something would have happened to my baby? Because I'm constantly telling you, something's not right.
We found that in hearing about the stories of women who died due to pregnancy-related complications, that an overarching theme was that women really weren't being heard.
CDC Reproductive Health Director Dr. Wanda Barfield tells Newsy that's the driving force behind Hear Her.
To help other women speak up and be heard.
A campaign that encourages women to listen to their bodies and providers to listen to women. The ads aren't in response to the pandemic, but an overall warning for a nation that experienced 658 pregnancy-related deaths in 2018. With Black women accounting for twice the number of deaths as whites.
And I still remember to this day what that voicemail said. And he said, April, this is Dr. So-and-so. And I'm calling to let you know I received your latest results. And unfortunately, this is not a viable pregnancy.
April Wofford says she disagreed, told the doctor as much, and got a second opinion.
Had I not been my own advocate and had I just taken what he said as truth, my son would not be here. And every day I think about that.
Dr. Joy Creer-Perry, who testified before Congress and the UN on Black maternal death, tells Newsy it's rare for minority women to speak up. And when they do speak, sometimes they aren't heard. A problem that's been woven into gynecological history.
One of the founders of modern gynecology was Dr. J. Marion Sims. He practiced on 3 Black women who were enslaved, Lucy, Betsy, and Anarcha, without any anesthesia, even though anesthesia at the time existed. He put in textbooks that he could do this on Black women who were enslaved because we did not feel pain.
Now, investigators are still researching the COVID-19 pregnancy disparities and say it could be anything from the jobs certain minority women work to bias. But Dr. Creer-Perry tells me those are all simply symptoms of an issue centuries in the making. Amber Strong, Newsy, Northern Virginia.
I think now's a good time to show you a part of my mask collection. This one is my usual, and it's my favorite because it makes me look like a ninja. When you're back, we'll tell you if masks like these could help residents living under a blanket of wildfire smoke out west. We've been in this pandemic long enough to know that there are levels to the kind of masks people should be using when out in public. Do wear masks that have 2 or more layers of breathable fabric. Don't wear masks that have exhalation valves or vents that allow particles to escape. Thanks, CDC. But with wildfires decreasing air quality out west, which COVID-19 masks work best for wildfire smoke? Newsy's Lindsay Thies explains.
Wildfire is blanketing parts of the West, and its smoke can cause major health issues. But doctors warn cloth masks for COVID-19 don't protect from the smoke's harmful side effects. Particulate matter in the smoke is what causes health problems. The smallest, 20 times smaller than a strand of hair, can be inhaled and make their way to the lower respiratory tract and lungs. Short term, it can cause the eyes or nose to burn, but it can lead to cough and breathing problems too.
It weakens the lungs' defenses because it irritates our lungs. We have increased secretions in our lungs and our upper airways. It can make it easier to get ill from a virus or other type of infection.
The CDC says while cloth masks block the respiratory droplets that cause COVID-19, they don't block the small particulate matter from wildfire smoke. The same goes for neck bandanas too.
The particulate size is too small to be filtered by masks such as that, and then frequently these masks are not fitted tight enough.
N95 respirators without valves do provide protection from wildfire smoke, but it's already very hard to track one down. And doctors warn they might be in short supply as frontline healthcare workers prepare for a possible COVID-19 resurgence come fall.
You can't see nothing. I could barely see that boat over there.
Meantime, checking your local air quality is key. Dr. Todd Bull with the University of Colorado Hospital says if the local air quality index is above 100, stay inside with the windows closed. Something that can be challenging for people who are already stir crazy during the pandemic.
I think it's really bad. I don't think that we should be outside, but at the same time, what else? I mean, we've been cooped up in the house already for months.
Lindsay Thies, Newsy, Denver.
There are a variety of ways to administer a COVID test, from throat swabs to saliva tests to breathalyzers, and clearly some look a bit more uncomfortable than others. Y'all know I'm talking about the little brain tickle. The federal government has ordered 150 billion rapid antigen tests to help identify cases in locations like schools and disaster zones. National reporter Usher Qureshi looks into how these tests work.
6 months into the global pandemic, and experts say we still need better and more frequent testing. Supply chain bottlenecks, long turnaround times, and the looming flu season have many pharmaceuticals scrambling for a better test.
There's been a great push and a lot of innovation has gone into developing new tests that might be able to be used in different scenarios.
This is actually the test card here.
John Hackett Jr. is the Vice President of Applied Research and Technology at Abbott Laboratories. Their 6th iteration of the COVID-19 test, known as Binax Now, is a compact credit card-sized rapid test, similar to a home pregnancy test.
You receive a nasal swab, and then that swab is directly inserted into the card. And there's a small pouch there that it's inserted into. 6 drops of a buffer had been placed there prior to putting in the swab.
Abbott provided us with this video showing how the product worked during the development phase. And though it does require a healthcare worker to administer, no specialty lab equipment is needed to process the antigen test. Results are available in about 15 minutes. The cost, $5 a piece.
So in 15 minutes, you can look at the front of this test. And if you see a single line, that would be the control line. And if there's 2 lines, that would indicate that the individual is positive for SARS-CoV-2.
The test was granted emergency use authorization by the FDA. It includes an app that allows people who test negative to display a temporary digital health pass for quick screening. The Trump administration quickly bought up 150 million tests, most of Abbott's supply, a deal reportedly worth more than $750 million. Officials say they are already beginning to deploy the tests to states, nursing homes, schools, and areas hit hard by recent natural disasters.
These antigen tests, however, are fast and they're cheap and they can be done really easily.
Dr. Emily Landon, an epidemiologist and infectious disease specialist at University of Chicago Medicine, says, though helpful in some scenarios, quick antigen tests like this can be less accurate and have a high false positive rate.
These tests aren't perfect. And some of you have been in that situation with strep throat where you find that even if the test is negative, that they send off a culture afterwards to make absolutely certain that you don't have strep throat. And these tests are kind of similar.
Still, experts say having a variety of testing options is beneficial, but the gold standard of accuracy remains the deep nasopharyngeal swab tests processed in a lab. Reporting from Chicago, I'm Usher Qureshi.
If you're looking for a bit of escapism from whatever is occupying your time, feel free to give us a shout using the hashtag #NewsyInTheLoop. It ain't as good as in OnlyFans, but at least this is free. Earlier in the show, we heard about how many in the GOP, including the president and the Senate Majority Leader, want to move quickly on a White House nominee for the Supreme Court. Most Democrats and at least 2 outspoken Republicans say that the nomination process should wait until after the election. Here's more.
President Trump and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell have made no secret of their intent to quickly nominate a successor for Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And Democrats promptly dished out criticism on the interview circuit Sunday. Former President Bill Clinton, who nominated Ginsburg, called the move a power play in an interview with CNN.
Their first value is power, and they're trying to jam the court with as many ideological judges as they can. It's going to further spread cynicism in our system.
Democrats have called on Republicans to follow their own precedent set in 2016, halting Supreme Court nominations in an election year. When asked on Fox News whether that's hypocritical, Senator Tom Cotton said Republicans have a clear mandate to replace Ginsburg.
The Senate majority is performing our constitutional duty and fulfilling the mandate that the voters gave us in 2016 and especially in 2018.
In an interview with ABC, Nancy Pelosi said the government's main focus should be on the election and the coronavirus pandemic. She added Democrats have options to block the nomination.
We have arrows in our quiver that I'm not about to discuss right now, but the fact is we have a big challenge in our country.
51 votes are needed to confirm a new justice. Senator Ted Cruz told ABC News he's not sure whether Republicans currently have the votes to solidify the confirmation of President Trump's would-be nominee, but he's optimistic.
No, I don't know the answer to that. I believe we will. I think it is particularly important that the Senate take it up and confirm this nomination before the election.
2 Republicans have said they don't believe a nominee should be named until after the election. Senator Susan Collins of Maine and Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska would make up 2 of the 3 Republican votes Democrats would need to block the nomination. For Newsy, I'm Nathan Byrne.
That's it for us, gang. As always, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place, for more In the Loop. Top stories from Newsy are headed your way right now.